This is Module 4, Lesson 1, Line Plots. So here we have a line plot, and the very first thing you should always do when you have a line plot is read the wording that's above it, because it might give you information that you will need later on. So this says the following line plot shows the growth of 10 bean plants during their second week after sprouting. If I didn't know there were 10 bean plants from that, I could count all the X's in the line plot, and I would see there's 10, and that tells me how many plants there are. So the first thing that I always have to do is I have to figure out underneath my x's what the value is. So I want to know what these values are here. I know this one is a 2, it's already there. I want to figure out these values. So I'm going to start. Line plots always start by going from 0 to 1. So I look in here and I see how many spaces there are. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That tells me that every single line is worth 1/8 because there's 8 spaces from 0 to 1. So now I can come over here and I see that here's the 1. And I want to get to over here where I have my arrow. So I have 1 and 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8. So this is worth 1 and 6/8. In line plots, I tend not to simplify because there may be a question that asks me to add and subtract things. If I have to add and subtract, I want a common denominator, so I want to leave them all at 8. 2 is already here for me, but there's a 1 line after 2, so that's 2 and 1/8. And then I keep counting. 2/8, 3/8, this is 2 and 4/8. And then over here is 2 and 5/8. This is 2 and 6/8, so this is 2 and 7/8. So now I have everything labeled on the bottom, so I know my measurements before I even start my questions. The next thing I do is I count all my x's. This one has 2, and 2, 2, 2, 1, and 2. So any questions that are asked, I now have all the work done up above. So the first question asks, what is the measurement of the shortest plant? That doesn't mean which has the least x's. The, the 1 here is the least amount of x's. What it means is the shortest in measurement, and these are the measurements down here. So the shortest measurement is 1 and 6/8 inches. Next, it asks me how many plants measure 2.5. Well, I did everything in eighths, so I'm not sure what 2.5 is in eighths. So I'm going to take my 2.5 and I want to turn it into 2 and something out of 8. So this goes back to module 3. 2 times what is 8? It was times 4. So when I do times 4 here, I would end up with 4. So this is really talking about 2 and 4/8. So how many plants measure 2 and 4/8? That's this point right here. And the number right above is 2. So the answer would be 2 plants. The next question asks, what's the measurement of the tallest plant? Well, if this was the shortest down here, the tallest is down here, and that's 2 and 7/8 inches. Next, it says, what's the difference between the longest and the shortest measurements? Many of you can do parts of these in your head, but by showing your work, you get rid of your careless errors, and you also can get points in case you do make an error. So my longest one is 2 and 7/8. My shortest one is 1 and 6/8. And it asked me to find the difference. Difference means to subtract. And I end up with 1 and 1/8 inches. And that's how I read line plots. Here's one more line plot to look at. So before I go and I answer any questions once again, I'm going to figure out what the x's are worth. So I'm actually going to start though by writing how many x's I have, because that's the easier thing to do. And now I'm going to figure out their locations. So from 0 to 1, I see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, so everything is worth a quarter. So when I go to this x right here, I have 2 and then 1/4. And then when I come over here, it's hard to fit it in, but I want to pay attention to this. I have 3 and 3/4. 4 is already there. Then I have 4 1/4, 4 2/4, 4 3/4, and I have 5. 5 1/4, 5 2/4. There's nothing at 5 3/4. 6 already has something there. 6 1/4, and 7's already there. So now I have all my units and everything that I need there, my numbers. And the question asks, which pencil measurement is the most frequent? Which means which has the most X's. It shows up the most. Frequent means it happens a lot. And I look and 4 right here, it's a lot. And that's sitting at 4 3/4 inches. Sometimes we're not going to read line plots, but instead we're going to draw line plots. So the first thing we need is a title. So we're going to act like this is the length of candy. We'll make up a title. We're going to need our number line down here for the line plot. And now we're going to look and we notice that we have different denominators. We have 2's and we have 4's. And for those students who don't know, we want to change them all to the same denominator. And the same denominator, we would use the higher one in this case, which is 4. 2 can go into 4. So I want to ask myself, 1 1/2, if I try to make a denominator out of 4, what can I make? Some people see it right away, but if you don't, here's a little example. If I have 1 1/2, and I want to turn it into something out of 4, I have to bring the whole number over. 2 times 2 is 4, so 1 times 2 is 2, and it would be 1 2/4. So I would know that every half is 2/4. So I can change this one to 2 2/4. I could change this one to 3 2/4. And I can change this one to 2 2/4. And this one is 3 2/4. So now that I've changed all that, I can go and I can start. So I always start with 0 no matter what. But then the next thing that I need to look at is what's my largest number up here. My largest number up here is 3 3/4. Since that's the largest number I have, I know I have to go greater than 3, but I'm not going over 4. So I can split it up into 0 to 4. Then I'm filling in my whole numbers. And now I'm looking, because what am I splitting up each whole number into? Well, my denominator is 4 every time. So I'm splitting each whole number up into fourths. So now I have it all split up and I can start marking up what I need to mark up. So first I have 1 1/2, which is just like 1 2/4. So here's my 1 and 1/4 2/4. So this is 1 1/2 and I mark it with an X. I then cross it out. I now have 2 3/4. So I go to 2 and I go 1/4 2/4 3/4. So I have 2 3/4 and I mark it with an X and I cross it out. Then I have 3. Well, the number 3 is already there, so I just need to put the X. Then I have 2 3/4. It's already there, so I just have to mark the X. I don't need to write it. Then I have 2 1/2, which is just like 2 2/4, which would be right here, 2 2/4. Then I have 2 3/4. It's already written, so I just need to put an X. Then I have 3 3/4, and I put an X. Then I have 3. I put another X on 3. It's already there. I have 3 1/2, which is the same as 3 2/4, and I mark it with an X. I have 2 1/2, which I already have, which is 2 2/4. I just mark the X. I don't need to write it. And then I have 3 1/2. I mark with the X. I don't need to write it. So now to double check that I did everything, I want to see. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 X's. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 numbers. So I have everything plotted, and now I would be able to answer any questions that I had. And that's how we work with line plots.